Thank you, Jeff. Just a quick reminder, volunteers will be collecting the questions now. They will once again collect the second set of questions after our fine speaker is done. I now have the privilege of introducing Brahmachari Mural Bhai. Mural Bhai ji joined the Dakshineshwar Ramakrishna Sangha Adyapita more than 4 decades ago. He has been both instrumental and a dedicated worker in developing this Sangha, expanding the organization's social services both in India as well as around the world, establishing schools, colleges, hospitals, and orphanages. This morning, he is going to speak about the vision of universal harmony and broader tolerance. Brahmachari Mural Bhai.
Mokam karoti bachalam pangum langate girim yat kripa tamam bande paramananda madhav Om Stapakaya Chadarmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Tena Ramakrishna Kripatam Nvadyamat Pradasritam Nityam Avatvana Sarva Thakura Srimat Annada Namaste Jyotirayaya Vivekananda Surya Satchit Sukha Sarupaya Shamine Papaharine Shamine Tapaharine I worship Lord the Supreme Bliss by whose grace Adam can talk, Ellen can cross the hill. I bow down to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Thakur Sri Ramakrishna Dev, Master of Swami Vivekananda Ji. And I bow down to the lotus feet of Swamiji. And I bow down to my founders, Sri Sri Amrita Thakur. On behalf of Dakshineshwar Ramakrishna Sangha and on behalf of my 2,000 orphan boys, orphan girls, widow bereft of husbands and some old age home for homeless, I welcome you all. First, to tell anything about Swamiji, just Swamiji not through me. I am only a weak instrument. His character was so great that I or any of his disciples or followers, if we have spent hundreds of lives, could do no justice to a millionth part of what he really was. So, Dakshineshwar, you know, an international pilgrimage, where Ramakrishna Dev used to live 30 years. Vivekananda Ji, original Narendranath Datta, converted to whole world, a very great monk. My founder, Sri Sri Amrita Thakur, he was going to be a great doctor after discovering 7 medicines from his own experience. Within 1 year, he will be a man of lot of money. At that time, Ramakrishna told, not this life but something higher. You go to Eden Garden, you will find goddess Kali. After getting Kali, his life completely changed from only affairs to a spiritual. Vivekananda Ji told, a spiritual knowledge is only the thing that can remove our miseries for it. Other knowledge is satisfy once only for a time. My founder told, righteousness creates the beauty of character. Beauty of character creates the harmony of home. Harmony of home creates the order of nation. Order of nation brings the peace of the world. First, Ramakrishna Thakur built the widow mothers institution bereft of husband and son. Vivekananda told, I do not believe in a God who will not wipe out widow's tears or to bring a piece of bread to the orphan house. Then my founder, Ramakrishna Thakur, established for women. Vivekananda told, women should have the same status as men in society. If they cannot contribute their share for the growth of society, society is divided. Society cannot progress depending on man alone. I am asked again and again, what are think of women's question? Am I human? You ask that question again and again. Who are you to solve the woman's problem? Are you the Lord God? You should rule over every woman as you do. Hands off. They will solve their own problem. There is no chance for the welfare of the country unless the condition of the woman is improved. You can understand. It is impossible for a bird to fly on only one. With 500 men, the conquest of India might take 50 years. But with the same amount of women, not more than a few years. Vivekananda is believed to mother. Mayananda Thakur found that very temple. On the top of the temple he established. He installed all the symbols of moon and star, Muslim and trident for Hinduism, cross for Christianity, every symbol. Vivekananda told, I shall go to the mosque of the Muhammad. I shall enter into the Christian church and kneel before the crucifix. I shall go to the Buddhistic temple where I shall take refuge in Buddha and his law, dedication. I shall enter into the forest and sit down in meditation with the Hindu. But not only shall I do all this, but I shall keep my heart open for all that may come in the future. Today is a very auspicious day. I offer my heartfelt thanks, all the audiences, all the dignitaries, and all the organizers, especially Dr. Pradeep Ghosh. First day I am in the Chicago DRSA Art Institute of Chicago. Swamiji told, I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world about tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, we accept all the religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the refugees, persecuted. Another thing, that day 11 September 1893, for the modern situation of the country, he told, sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant, fanaticism, have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled this earth with violence and drenched it often and often. Very matter of great regret. So, Swamiji told, often and often, of human blood. Not only that, he told, they have destroyed all civilization and sent the whole nation to despair. Had it not been these horrible demons, human society would be far more advanced than it is now. But that time is come. Yesterday, my beloved father, Dr. Pradeep Ghosh, burning the lamp, Swamiji told, today morning, the bell that tolled in the morning in honor of this convention may be the death nail of all the fanaticism and all the superstition, all the persecutions. With the sword or with the pen, and all uncharitable feelings between the persons wending their way to the same goal. Vivekananda told, give up jealousy and conceit. Learn to work united. This is the great need of our country. So, try to do something for the distressed people. Vivekananda told, he who sees Lord in the poor, in the deceased, in the miserable, He told all power is within you. You can do anything and everything as you like. I may be the best or better than many I am not was. Go to hell for the salvation of others. Liberation is only for him who gives up everything for others. There is no liberation at all to call my own. The last day session, time already 2 and fingers are coming to this in this time no. Last day 27th September 1893. Vivekananda is told, Chicago Art Institute of Chicago. If the parliament of religion has shown anything to the world, it is this. Today, World Conference of Religion. It has proved to the world that holiness, purity, and charity are not the exclusive possessions of any church in the world. And that every system has produced men and women of the most exalted character. In the face of this evidence, if anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and destruction of others, I pity him from the bottom of my heart and point out to him that upon the banner of every religion will soon be written, in spite of this resistance, always present. Vivekananda is telling, life is a struggle is life. So don't worry. The what we have not fight, assimilation not destruction, harmony and peace not dissension. I pray to Swami Vivekananda from the Veda, Sarvesham Mangalam Vyat, let goodness prevail all around the world. Sarve Santu Niramaya, let all stay healthy and hearty. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, let all see the supreme beauty of Lord. Ma Kashi Dukha Bhagavat. Let no one explain miseries. My 2000 orphan child, daily expenses $2,000. My beloved father, Dr. Pradeep Ghosh, always sending the dead money. My Allah, our branch, New Jersey, they have also come. They are sending the money to save my institution. May Goddess Kali Abdama bless you all. May your family thrive more to more by our blessings. Swamiji told, love never fades. Today or tomorrow or ages after, truth will conquer. Love shall win the victory. Khuda Hafiz, Vande Mataram, Jai Hind, Amin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mother Bhai ji, Jeff Long, Swami Atmajananand ji, and Justice Sam for your thoughtful presentations. Got quite a few questions here for you. Let me begin with this request from one of the members in the audience. Can we have copies of that wonderful poem you read? And also, this is, I think, for Swamiji, is your talk available in print or online? I believe these microphones are packed. You can answer that.
The poem is available. If anyone wants to go online and simply type in complete works of Swami Vivekananda, there's a search. Put in any of the words there, you'll come there. Two different versions. One in a letter to Miss Mary Hale, and another, I think, just listed among his poems. I spoke from notes. There's no complete written version, but I don't think I said anything that terribly valuable that the world will miss it if it's okay.
They will be the judge of a follow-up here, Swamiji. What are your views on humanism, and maybe you can relate to Swami Vivekananda ji's parts of this. And what the questioner means is that following the values and principles of religion, but without believing in God. So humanism as a kind of a spiritual tradition with God removed from it.
Swamiji was a great teacher of Karma Yoga, as well as the other yogas. And I wish I had access to it now. There's a very beautiful quotation where he says, even if someone doesn't believe in God, has no metaphysics at all, doesn't care for meditation, doesn't care for devotion, yet is an unselfish worker who devotes himself heart and soul to the welfare of others, he can reach the same goal that the jnani will reach through his philosophy, and the yogi through his meditation, and the devotee through his devotion. So he had a firm belief that this power of goodness, this power of unselfishness was the critical thing. And whatever philosophy we profess or beliefs we have are really secondary. In fact, he used to say that it's better not to believe at all than to simply profess some beliefs without having any experience. This is number one. Second thing I'd like to say is I'm not a representative of Buddhism, but I always feel a little sorry that somehow they get left out a little bit in the interreligious dialogue. We always end up saying things like everyone is worshiping the same God and trying to have the same realization. The one religion that doesn't profess much of its personal God is the one that emphasizes compassion more than any other. So the Buddhist faith, and we see in the Dalai Lama and others, has that power to transform an individual and take an individual to whatever that ultimate goal is, nirvana, however they explain it, equally as well as any theistic religion. And even the highest conception of Advaita Vedanta has very little of a personal God in it also. And certainly we know that those who follow this austere path of knowledge, Advaita Vedanta, will have that highest realization without relying on traditional beliefs of devotion, worship, surrender, faith, grace, or many of these concepts.
Thank you. Maybe I can address this question to Justice Sen, since you have sat on the high courts, you've been a member of the Human Rights Commission and chairman. The question is, interfaith dialogue many times stays as just pure dialogue. How do we transition this into practice, to going from talk to action?
I think the main issue raised by the questionnaire has nothing to do with sitting in High Court or Human Rights Commission. One has to uplift oneself from narrowness to infinity, and broadness of mind can bring one to that level. Swami Vivekananda said, each individual is a potential soul and has divinity within him. One has to try to reach that stage. If that stage is reached, all sorts of sectarianism, narrowness will go, and not only interfaith dialogue is now open for discussions. I had the privilege to participate as inaugurator and speaker in so many interfaith dialogues organized in various places. by Ramakrishna Mission and other spiritual organizations. Even amongst Hindus, there are different groups, Shakto, Shoigo, and Vaishnava. Even from amongst Vaishnavas, there are so many groups, Shaktos, so many groups. They also clash, that is due to narrowness only. But as Ramakrishna Mission's motto is, Attano Mokkhartha Jagatita, do good to the world, and then we can only be benefited. If we can do something for the world, it is to our benefit only. We ourselves are benefited, and that should be the practice. I thank you for the question.
Thank you, Justice Sen. And maybe I can direct this question to Jeff, though anyone can address this, I believe. It's an irony and also saddening that in our modern age, as interfaith dialogue has expanded, at the same time, there is a hardening of differences between religious groups, particularly among small but influential groups that wish to initiate and broaden and identify conflicts. Do you have any comments on this situation?
If I just take one point. I refer to only Hindus about their different aspects of different classes and groups. That is in every faith. Muslims also have Shia, Sunni, Ahmadi and other groups, Nehadiya, and Christians, and the Protestant, Catholics and other groups. So all these, even Buddhists have also at one point of time several groups. So all should be over, main thing should be love for humanity. That's what I intended to mean. Otherwise there could have been confusion, because I referred to only Hindus groups. All religions have groupings and other things. Swamiji does not say that you should not follow that, as mentioned by some speakers. Swamiji mentioned that one should follow his ideals and his own religion, but each religion is great and should be accepted, and broader sense of toleration should come whenever there is a difference. But acceptance is more important, that is showing respect. Respect is most important, and dignity. So I clarify that also. Thank you.
Thank you. So Jeff, you want me to read the question again?
But I'll paraphrase it and see if I've got it.
Okay.
The question is about the irony of the fact that while this idea of universal acceptance seems to be gaining ground, simultaneously we see a hardening of attitudes. Why are these things happening at the same time?
And while we have more and more of these interfaith dialogue conferences and opportunities, there also seems to be a hardening of position.
Right. Why are these things happening simultaneously? That is a very complex question, and I'm sure there are many, many causes, and not just one. The first thing that comes to my mind, though, is the ease of communication we now have. Because of the increases in our ability to communicate, communication technology, Sensei Anthony Stoltz and I were just talking before this about how we're able now routinely to talk face-to-face with people in Japan, India, all over the world. And so because the ease of communication is so fast now, the ability to communicate both kinds of ideas, the sort of promotion of fanaticism and hatred and mutual intolerance, and these more universal accepting ideals of harmony, the ability of adherents of both types of school of thought are able to get their message out much more effectively than used to be the case. For much of history, ideas traveled very, very slowly, right? As fast as a camel or a horse could take them. Now it's instantaneous. And so I see us as living in an era of great, I think you could just call it intensity, that both ideals of universal acceptance and ideals of exclusion are spread very, very rapidly, and the pace of the conversation is quickened a great deal. And we hope that we don't just get caught up in the rush of all of it. And the better argument needs to win.
And maybe this is a follow-up. Again, any of you can address this, and maybe I can also respond to this. Interesting question. How many religious exclusivists function productively in interfaith dialogue?
I suppose I could try to answer that. Because I think it's a good criticism very often of interfaith dialogue that one common criticism of interfaith dialogue is that other mic? Oh, okay. Okay. Nice. One common criticism of interfaith dialogue is that most of us who are here already agree that we should get along and that this is a good thing, and that the real need is to bring in and to persuade and engage with people who really have those more hardened attitudes. And also to understand why those attitudes are there. Those attitudes, we can very easily slip into condemning such attitudes. But in order to really correct them, we need to understand why they've emerged. And they usually emerge from some kind of genuine pain, from some kind of genuine historical hurt that people feel or perceive. And really getting at that is would be, I think, the next step beyond simply dialogue. And I think some of the more productive conversations are the ones where we actually do involve people who genuinely disagree. The challenge, though, of course, is always managing to have that occur in a way that is constructive and doesn't deteriorate into name calling and mutual accusation. It's very difficult to pull off.
Swamiji, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add?
We know Sri Ramakrishna made many statements about interfaith harmony of religions. But in one place he says we should practice all of the religions at least once. To me, the problem is we don't know each other. We know each other as outsiders. We really need to go into a church, go into a mosque, go into a temple, and find out who these people are. And only then I really feel we understand our common humanity and understand that we all have the same types of aspirations, same types of goals, same types of good points and bad points. And that it's basically because we do things standing in our own spot. So Swami Vivekananda said one time that we really have to walk in the shoes of the other person before we can understand that other person. Many people, of course, have said that. To me, this is the real key, and this is why simply dialogue doesn't do that much. We have to actually know each other and relate on the other person's terms in order to understand.
In this context, I think the movie Life of Pi, those of you who have already watched it, those of you who have read the book, know that young Essene Molitor seeks God in a variety of foreign temples, churches, and mosques. So, and you know, if you have not seen the movie, I don't have any stock in this, but I'm just making the pitch. It's a wonderful movie that kind of expands on this idea of being situated in different religious contexts, so that we can have a better understanding of our own quest for God. And I believe maybe we have time for just one more question. Let's see. And this may have to go again to Jeff here. How should one react to friends and colleagues who feel compelled to save you, convert you based on their beliefs?
I've had some experience with this. Well, again, we have to always engage people compassionately and not in a dismissive way, and to take very seriously why they believe what they believe. And if they're coming from the perspective of a religious tradition, and if we do believe in universal acceptance, then we have to say, okay, there must be a core of truth to what this person is saying. So someone wants to save me and therefore have me convert to his faith. I can begin with the common ground that, well, this person believes that God loves me and wants to save me. Right? So, okay, and we sort of confirm that and verify that with each other, that we both agree that God loves us and wants to save us. Okay. So then you can build upon the logic of that. Okay, does this loving God then create millions and billions of people in order to see them damned? Does that make sense? You sort of engage with them on that. I mean, I come from a background of philosophy, so that's how I tend to do this. And if someone can see that there's a contradiction in the idea that the God who loves you is also going to condemn you because of your religious practice, then you're opening up to a new level of truth. But then you also have to listen to and understand them. You might learn something from their idea too.
There is another very interesting question. I don't know if you have the time, but this is maybe a question for all of us to think about. How do you suggest engaging the modern American society? We seem to be moving toward tolerance and secularization rather than acceptance and interfaith dialogue. A kind of a challenging question, if any one of you want to address briefly.
I'll give a very quick answer to that. Tolerance is not the ideal, as we've been saying. Universal acceptance is the ideal. But tolerance is certainly better than intolerance. And intolerance isn't gone yet. So I'm happy to see more tolerance. But we're evolving. That's my answer.
Thank you all once again for your wonderful thoughts and sharing your views, and thank you for the questions. There are a couple more here, but sorry, we have run out of time. I just want to remind you that the conference registrants, you have an evaluation form. I don't know where exactly they are, maybe in your packets. Please complete the evaluation form. We have a short break now. We are supposed to assemble here back at 11 o'clock. So please reassemble here by 11 a.m. Thank you.